Welcome to the Sandler Training Hour. You're with Jim and Jason Stevens. And this week, Jim, I thought we'd talk a little bit about that often mentioned thing, motivation, which seems amorphous, but on a practical note, we may know what motivates us, but we don't always pay attention to what is motivating for someone else or what drives them to change. And I think this is important in context to what we use to uncover or discover forward momentum in Sandler, which is pain, because without determining what someone else is motivated by, what do you end up defaulting to?
Yeah, I think you end up defaulting to your assumptions. So whatever you assume is somebody else's motivator could be based on role, responsibility, could be based on what you are motivated by. But those assumptions can get us into a lot of trouble. And it speaks to the conversation we've had a couple of times on the show, which is self-awareness.
Mhm.
I actually think most of us are probably not very clear about what does motivate us.
Yeah.
I think about my own experience, and I can think of there are several things that I know that I should do. I know it would benefit me to do it. I know it probably wouldn't even be that difficult, but yet I resist. So
Yeah.
that motive, that resistance, I'm not either aware of or tapping into what driver would compel me to take the action that's in my best interest.
Yeah, it's like the gap between what is surface level self-awareness against what is the why behind self-awareness or what is
Hmm.
the motivation. So typically, in most cases, we all have a gut sense that says, oh, you could have done differently and it would
Yeah.
have felt better.
Hmm.
And that's that surface level response. And if you never go beyond that to take a moment and look into the scripts of what's driving the behavior, then you're sort of, the way I think about it is it's like self-awareness as a self-policing situation where the only time you really change is when you do something that really hurts someone else, but otherwise you become your own worst enemy because you're not changing for your benefit or you're not taking advantage of what motivates you. You're only making adjustments based on what other people dislike or what you feel they dislike about you. And I think it's the worst case scenario. So the same is true with others. When we're trying to motivate someone else, while it may be easy to think, oh, I understand them, I understand their role, I understand who they are, so I'll motivate them this way. What would the problem be with having a quick conversation that says, hey, we're dealing with this issue together. What is your biggest problem with addressing it?
Yeah. One of my favorite questions to ask a coaching client early in the relationship is some version of, so I'm curious if I notice that you're stuck and I can't get you to take an action that
Mm,
you believe is in your own best interest, what's the best way to get you unstuck? And the answers to that are generally fairly generic because most people haven't taken time to think about that. Well, remind me
yeah.
help remind me of some of the reasons why I want to do it, or help me understand the gain that will happen as a result of it. And those are all good attempts at identifying how to get unstuck, but a deeper answer has to do with really what are your intrinsic motivators?
Yeah.
What drives you? In fact, we were in a one of our training sessions this week, and this topic came up, and one we're interacting between marketing and sales, and we're working on how can we identify the gaps between marketing and sales and bridge those gaps so that both departments know what they're doing. And an interesting comment came from one of the marketing folks who said something along the lines of, we know that sales is motivated by money because that's how they get paid.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of work to try to help them make more money, and then they don't execute on it. And we, how do you get somebody to be more motivated? And I thought that was such an interesting question because what they're really saying is we assume that every
Yeah.
salesperson who's paid on a commission is motivated by money. And the reality is, I want you to be motivated by money if you're a salesperson, but our character defines our motives. And it's very rarely that money is on the top.
Well, and the subtext of what marketing was saying was some version of we do everything in our power to speak to their desire to make money, and it doesn't motivate them.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, how often are we all falling into some sort of trap of saying, well, I know exactly what this person wants. And so I'm just going to speak to that, which skips the whole relationship piece because you're back in the saddle of I know what's happening. And the worst people to work with are the people that don't have any questions. Like that they just live in a constant state of knowledge and you're like, okay, you're right once again, congratulations, but where do we go from here? Like how do we get anything to change? If you walk into a conversation and it's just a if you find yourself sometimes in that space where you don't have questions because you know the answers, maybe consider what it would take for you to move out of that space. Because the
Yeah.
risk is that you like if you're a business owner, you have two choices when it comes to A players. You can create an environment and a culture that is good enough that people want to be there and to excel, or you can offer enough money that people will put up with anything. Those those are like
Right.
your two options. And I think both the cheaper and the more profitable option is let's build a culture around excellence and questions
Yeah.
and discovery.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had the experience in my career of training salespeople who are very highly compensated, and
Yeah.
it's generally not to stereotype either here, but it was primarily with startup companies that are well funded. And
Mm.
so they're throwing ridiculous amounts of money to people who are reportedly in sales in order to get them to sell.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you're describing. It's trying to train and inspire a bunch of people who think they know what they're doing, but in actuality do not. And it's a death march to try to help someone recognize something they're totally blind to.
Yeah. And the lack of curiosity will leave you bitter and resentful and looking for one moment to make a consolidated decision about
Yeah.
what one of the things we talked about earlier this week was just that idea of we make emotional decisions and then rationally and logically justify them after the fact. And that's what's constantly happening without discovery. And so the best thing that you can do, and actually to return to topic and to just think about how do I weigh or understand my motivators? I think it's really key if you don't, if that question feels almost esoteric and squishy to you, then it's really key to do it on a granular level of like, well, first, how do you prioritize your day? And then when it goes to structuring and prioritizing your day, how do you decide what is the most important thing happening on your plate? And then what pushes you to take action there? And going there, you can go all sorts of level of depth here. But if the only thing that drives you is putting out fires, there's a likely connection to a desire to not look like you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, doing a little work, research on this after the subject and looking for what are the primary motivators. Well, people are motivated by things like recognition,
Yeah.
competition, purpose, meaning, mastery, belonging, autonomy, independence, approval,
Yeah.
financial gain. I mean, all of these are valid drivers and valid motivators. And if you knew what really drove you, what really motivated you, would you be more effective at accomplishing the tasks and goals in your life? I, of course, think the answer is yes. And I think this quest for self discovery is a worthy endeavor.
Yeah. And the alternative question is, what is it costing you by not knowing that answer
Yeah,
immediately?
it's a great one.
Because
Great one.
regardless of what you get from knowing your motivators, you should know them. Because you sometimes, like, if you're the owner, yeah, you can live in your head and be frustrated all the time. But if you're not an owner, if you're just looking for ways to grow, you have to manage up. And the only way you can manage up effectively is by helping someone who's above you understand what really drives you so that they have a better chance to connect it to your actual actions and the things that you do. And if they don't, remember, most people leave a manager, they don't leave a company.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, that's us at Sandler Training. Next week we'll be off in Florida, so there won't be an episode. But if you have any questions or concerns, or just want to send us a quick postcard of an email and say, uh, just thinking of you, then feel free to. You can reach us at, you can find our website at, let me see, it's changed.
Oh,
It's it's go.sandler.com/crossroads. Go.sandler.com/crossroads. There you can find a little bit more about who we are and what we do and reach out if you want. But in the meantime, good selling and good luck out there.